For today's flute tip today, I want to talk about how I approach learning a new piece of music. So I recently was asked to sub on piccolo third flute for the Houston Civic Symphony, which is an all-volunteer orchestra here in Houston, Texas. And I sub for them periodically, at least once a year, for the past couple years. And on this concert, we are playing Shostakovich Symphony Number 1. And our first rehearsal was this past Monday, so about 5 days ago. And it went okay. I went in having practiced it and prepared a little bit, and so I felt pretty good about how my part went in the rehearsal. But there were still some parts that were quite challenging, mostly because it goes so fast. So the first thing that I did when I started learning it was I took it slow. And then I started looking at the patterns. So we're here at square 24, almost pretty much this entire page on this piccolo part. Also, I don't practice piccolo on piccolo. I learn all my music on the flute, and then I'll pull out the piccolo for mostly run-throughs, just mostly because I live with 5 other people and I want to spare them, but also for my ears. I know you can do earplugs, and that's what I'll do when I practice on piccolo, but I personally just find it easier to learn the music on flute and then play it on piccolo. So the first thing that I did was recognize the patterns. So we've got these patterns where there's chromatic scale followed by a tritone interval, and it just repeats over and over again on different notes. So a lot of chromatic patterns. I also went through it to make sure I'm counting everything correctly, mostly at like between measure square 30 and 32, making sure I'm counting the rest correctly. And then at square 34, I went through and marked my trills to make sure that I've got the right trill fingerings. And I don't want to have to think about it when it comes to reading the music. It's not like I look at the music all that much. We only have so many rehearsals, and I don't want to have to keep that at the front of my mind. So I write in the trills so that I can just remind myself when I look at those measures that what fingers need to move. So now, the next thing that I did, I put in some quite a bit of practice into it this week. And what I did was I started the metronome at 80 beats per minute. Quarter note equals 80. And if you notice, the tempo at 24 is 176. So it's quite a bit under tempo. It's more than half tempo. That's okay, because I want to learn it so that I'm learning the right notes at the beginning and not learning incorrect finger passages, just not learning the wrong notes. I'm piccolo, so I stand out. And so to me, it's really important that I'm playing all the right notes because you can hear me play above the orchestra a lot of the times. So the first thing that I did was just took the 2 measures between 24 and 25 and repeated them a lot. I started at small metronome intervals where I just go up like 1 or 2 beats and just play it faster and faster. But then it got to the point where I was starting to feel more comfortable, so I did intervals of 5 metronome beats. So I go from like 90 to 95 to 100 to 105. If I started making mistakes, I didn't increase the tempo. I would have more repetition on those notes to make sure that I'm playing everything right. And if I'm having more issues, then I bump the tempo back down so that I learn it better. So with this, I just kept going to about 160 and was feeling pretty good about that. And so then I moved on to the next 2 measures between 25 and 26, did the same thing, and just continued on, found these little chunks of music, like at measure 29 to 30, and then going pretty much from 30 through 32. Learning it in chunks of music. Now, I will say, after spending like 20 minutes doing this between teaching lessons yesterday, I was feeling pretty good. And I came back to it last night after dinner, just to kind of see how it went after putting in that time and repetition. And I picked it up and it sounded, yeah, not so good. So I put the tempo back down low and did the same thing, but I didn't take it into those small chunks. I did about half the page. And played through it like that. So now I can practice continuity, going from one group to the next. And it was still effective for me to do it that way, but still just that gradual increase of tempo. So about five beats at a time, increasing the tempo. Here's what it sounds like. So this is at 80, nice and slow. Okay, so that was how I run through it at 80. If you were following along with the music, you'll notice that I repeated the measure at 31 because I played it wrong and I wanted to play it right. So who cares? It's not like I'm playing with the orchestra. The goal right here is making sure I'm playing the right notes. So I didn't want to end it with wrong notes. So then increasing that tempo, here's a little bit faster, 120. All right, so obviously still needs a little bit of practice, but it helps me know what things to work on. Playing it at 120 right now was probably not the best idea, which is instructive and good to realize for yourself. I need to go back down in tempo and play through it slowly again. This is also kind of a good example where I don't know, maybe other people can, but I, at this point in my life and my flute career, can't really cram learning in music. If I put in a concerted effort, I can definitely learn pretty much any piece of music, but it takes some time. And I also find that if you can practice multiple times a day, just breaking it up, which works well for a number of people's schedules. It's hard to do one long chunk of time for a practice session, but it's easier for some people to do like 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. And one thing that I learned in college is that if you can break up your practice schedule so it's like 6 hours apart, it's really great for muscle memory and memory in general. That's kind of how I approach learning a new piece of music. This can be applicable to any flute player at any playing level, because the concepts apply no matter what. You don't even have to be a flute player to take something from this. So that's my tip for learning a new piece of music.